Welcome to Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about disaster recovery, business continuity. Today is a special live edition. We are from Continuity Insights 2022 in Louisville, Kentucky. And as you can tell, my partner in crime, my good friend, James Green, who you might know from our This Week in Business Continuity episodes. James, welcome to Louisville.
Alex, we made it.
We did.
We are live. For those of you who may know both of us, Alex and I saw each other in person fall of 2019 in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yep.
We have scheduled to be at probably 47 conferences since
Feels
then.
like it.
Now here we are in Louisville live. There's no green screen.
Nope.
You're going to see people walking around in the background. We're not sure how the audio is. Things are going to get messy, and that's the beauty
Of being live.
of live YouTube.
Yep. Hopefully, if anyone's watching here in Louisville, please feel free to come by and stop and join us. We have a little empty chair here for any special guests who want to stop by. We do have a couple to talk about, and we've got a whole list of things to talk about too.
We do. So first, let's talk about Continuity Insights. We want to thank Bob and the whole Continuity Insights team for allowing us to broadcast live from their conference. Bob is in the background right now speaking, so everyone can probably hear him. But thank you, everyone. We are at the start of the opening reception, first day. So, Alex, let's talk about your impressions of the first day. Do you have any impressions of today so far?
I had a good day. We were both speaking today. We both presented. So the first part of the day really for me was just getting used to what I'm going to say. Even though I've rehearsed it a lot of times, by the time you start talking, you end up using different examples and different people in the room when they join in. So it really changes sometimes what you want to say. But I had a great time. And then the afternoon, worrying about setting up, I attended your session, ran into a lot of people that I haven't seen for a long time. And hopefully will stop by and join us. But so far, so good. There are a couple of things I had going for me that I'll talk about shortly. But so far, so good. It's nice to see everybody back, and there is some enthusiasm from people that are here that they get to be somewhere again.
There's a lot of excitement. Yeah. Alex is being modest, talking about his session, so we'll circle back for that. I'm going to share about my session,
Sure,
if I can, because part of our guests for the next couple of days are speakers at this conference. I think my session was, I use the word disaster, I think is the right word for my session. My wife right now is probably saying, I told you so, and God bless, you were right. So Alex, I was asked to come up with a far out there topic. So I came up with the topic of what will business continuity look like in an AI world. So the genius risk idea I had was, I thought, if you're at a conference and you're attending a session about artificial intelligence, I presumed that you like science fiction. So my whole talk had an arc around science fiction movies, and each different science fiction movie, and I tied it to the theme of AI and BC, and I patted myself on the back all last week of how smart I was and how amazing this was. And as Alex knows, who was in the audience of my session was not sci-fi group of people. No. I kicked it off by saying, hey, what's everybody's favorite sci-fi movie? And I put that in there for myself as a marker to know if I was in trouble early. And the only answer I got, thankfully, was from Mr. Fullick, who shared that Star Wars is your favorite sci-fi movie. And pretty much crickets from there. And the next hour was a beautiful lesson in humility. I'm thankful that I took a risk. I'd be more thankful if it didn't pan out. See, I do listen to you. But that was my session. I know a lot of times on YouTube or on social media, we only talk about our wins and our successes. So I thought I'd start us off with, hey, I had a little stumble. I still believe in my heart there's a good talk in there somewhere.
Well, it surprised me that there weren't more people to start with because there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence in our
Yes.
industry, in communications, everything. So I was quite surprised that there wasn't more interest in it.
Yeah, as not as surprised as I was.
Well, mine went as I expected. I ended up with a few more people than I thought because I
Yes, you
thought
did.
I was going to have a small audience, and I ended up with an okay group. I think there were 25. I don't know, something
You
like that.
had a lot of
20.
people, and Alex is the master of resilience.
Yeah,
Can I share all the things that happened to you?
sure.
Because I kept a list of things that happened before Alex, and almost like you were on.
While I was talking.
Yeah. So the first issue you had was the laptop wasn't yours, so this isn't Alex's fault. Was password protected,
Mhm.
so we had to figure that out. And then there wasn't a HDMI converter,
Nope.
right, to show. And then this guy, the battery goes low. And being the true resilience professional you are, Alex very smoothly pulls out a paper copy of his presentation, and as the screen flickers and the computer dies, keeps going on with his It was, last week I taught a masterclass in resilience. I'm just going to show Alex's video because that was a masterclass in resilience. That was amazing. He didn't even skip a beat. So what was going through your head as all these technical
To be honest,
gremlins?
not a heck of a lot. I've got my hard copy. That's all I need. Fine. Just put it on the table in front of me, and I flipped the pages and I went through. While they had other people coming in with new laptops and cords and power cords and different people trying to fix the problem. And I just kept on going, like James said, until we got to the point where they said, okay, it's working. Oh, okay, fine. And I just turned around and got to the slide where I was, and there you go.
Okay.
It was rather interesting.
Hello.
So,
Hi, Linda. We are live on the air. If you'd like to pop in, if not, that's okay. Just wanted to let you know we're live right now.
yeah. We are filming on YouTube if you want to come around and join us.
No, not at
No?
this moment.
Okay.
Linda,
I'm trying to find out how you get that book.
you have to be a guest over here.
Okay, if you tell me how to get that book, then I'll figure out how to be a guest.
Well,
Amazon.
He's the author, or Amazon.
Amazon, yeah, or
Okay,
Amazon.
Let me take a look. Can I look at the book?
Sure, you can look at the
Please don't
book.
let me look at the book.
Her name's Linda, so she can't run away.
So, Alex, I know I've teased you about your session, but why don't you tell us a bit about what your session was actually about and not just technology gremlins?
Yeah, I took a little different tack this year, and I wanted to talk about people and soft skills. That we have, a lot of managers and people out there that are sometimes difficult, shall we say, and colleagues, new people of the industry. There's things we need to learn and how to deal with people, especially after coming out of COVID. It's difficult for people to interact now and be socially aware of what's going on. So I wanted to talk about some of that and how you can deal with people and how by just changing the way you say something, even putting different inflections on words can mean something totally different. It gave some pointers to people, just small things. One that it's my favorite one. It's the open door policy. That was my favorite one. People that love to say they have an open door policy, but it takes forever to get to that person because their door is closed or they have to deal with an administrative assistant. And I'm not knocking any admins out there, so no email. That meeting, if it gets booked, gets shuffled along because they don't really want to talk to you. So sometimes an open door policy is just lip service. And I'm not a big fan of that. I like, if you've got an open door policy, then I need to be able to approach you. Leave that door open or take it off.
I'd love to get comments from the audience because I have found that the only companies that say they have an open door policy are the ones that don't have an open door policy.
Yeah.
It seems to me those are those red flag code words. Another one is work hard, play hard, meaning to have no work-life balance.
Yeah.
But I've never worked at a company that has open door policy that actually had to state that.
Well, that's kind of where I got that particular one is from my own experience. because it was a CIO who always said, we have an open door policy. We want you to feel part of the team. We want you to bring your ideas forward. And I tried numerous times to talk to him. And every time it would get booked, moved, canceled, and never once did I talk to him. And I was there for 5 years. And I thought, there's no open door policy here. Not at all. Same thing with the vice president in my area too. So I think, except for my manager who was in the cubicle, so there was no door. Everybody else had an open door, but it was always closed, or it was just impossible to get into.
The other thing I found interesting during your talk, Alex, was somebody brought up the comment about work from home. And the first comment was, we need to be back in the office.
Yes.
And then there was a great conversation around that. And it's interesting to see people's views. Like we said, the first person said, everyone has to be back in the office because ideas aren't exchanged. And I was thinking about, I've worked for multinational companies in the past, and I've had teammates and coworkers in the Philippines, in Scotland, in countries I never met them. We can't all be together, and it's become quite a polarizing topic, really. And I think the companies that are on either extreme, we all are always home or we are all always in the office, are going to lose people. You got to be somewhere in between. Because like I said, if I'm in the office and I'm still on camera with a teammate or a coworker in another country, why does it matter what the backdrop is?
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a perfect example. I mentioned the point for myself that I'm an introvert, which is funny enough because we're doing live broadcasts and everything. But as an introvert, I thrive at home without all the interruptions. I do better. And extroverts, obviously, they like being surrounded by people, and they get their energy and ideas from being around people. I think differently, and I'm in the background. So making me go into the office is not going to do me any favors. I'm not going to feel motivated. I'm not going to feel a part of the team. I'm going to be feeling as though I'm forced to do something I'm not comfortable doing in an environment I'm not being comfortable in.
And you also mentioned your commute.
Yeah, my commute you'd be 2 hours into downtown Toronto with driving and trains and 2 hours back. So 4 hours a day I was traveling, 20 hours a week. And we only have 37.5 hours in a work week. And you add another 20, and that's what I'm doing traveling. Do I want to do that again? No.
No.
In those 20 hours, that's how the YouTube channel started. That's how I got my last book written. That's how I get the guests for Voice America. I don't want to give that up anymore. I'm doing better. How about you? How do you feel?
Yeah, my situation's a little different because when I changed employers in 2017, I went remote fully. And that was my first time. Prior to that, I always had a 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever type of job with a commute. And then in 2017, I joined a company where I was a consultant. So I was either on site with a client or at my house. So I kind of had that transition before it was forced on the whole world. And I like the mix. I find when I'm on site with a client, I'm very productive, doing a lot of tactical work.
Yeah.
But when I am home by myself uninterrupted, it allows me to do strategic work. It allows me to do thoughtful work. And to your point, if I'm trying to come up with a harebrained idea like, AI and VC, I can't do that when I'm interrupted or when there's a lot going on. I need time to kind of think and tune the world out. So I'm one of those people who balance. I like being around people, but if you actually want me to do stuff that involves my brain, I need some.
Yeah, I want to clarify, just because I like being at home doesn't mean I don't like around people. Well, let's just clarify that. I don't want to sound like someone who's going to put a long beard and live in a cave. That's not me. I like the quiet because I work better under that environment. And it's easier for me to get up, walk the dog, or my office has a balcony off of it. Go stand on the balcony for 5-10 minutes, enjoy the sunshine or the snow, because I'm in Canada. Enjoy that. And then I can go right back to work. But having someone come in, knock on your cubicle wall or say, hey, you got a second, and before you even get to answer, they're already asking the question anyway. And so my answer doesn't matter. That just interrupts and stops my train of thought. So that's why I prefer working at home.
You know, the other aspect too that I was thinking about, if you look at most of the decision makers who are deciding whether employees work from home or work from the office, they have a door that they can close. And 10 years ago, before we were all in cube farms, I remember I had an office, and if I had to think or needed quiet time, I could close the door. And I think that's another thing that these companies aren't taking into account. We all went to cube farms or cubominiums or whatever phrase you want to use, because the cost factor, you can reconfigure the logistics, but then you no longer have doors. And I often find that people making these decisions, executive management and human resources, have a door that they can close. And I think that's something, if we're going to, encourage people to be back in the office, we have to really look at that productivity, that privacy. Maybe people need more than 2 square feet and a cube wall that comes up to here.
Yeah, or a hoteling station that looks like a big picnic station with a bunch of chairs on it, and that's it.
Yeah, because I'll be honest, the first time I worked in a company that was all cubicles, it was, a row of 8, and you were just staring right at someone across the wall. And I don't think I worked for the first couple of weeks because
people would put things on the barrier so that they couldn't see their colleagues.
It's weird to kind of stare at you while I'm typing away. Very strange.
Stuffed animals and plants would end up on this wall just so that they couldn't see their co-workers.
Exactly. Everyone's hiding.
Yeah, it would happen all the time. There was, you mentioned HR too with doors. And I find it rather interesting that HR is all about people.
Yes.
But they're one of the areas that have a door that are always locked off from everybody. It's kind of ironic.
There's a couple of things to say there. And since my, full disclosure, my wife's in HR, I can't get in too much trouble. I do think, and I do tease her.
He's doing okay.
Sometimes, I always say some HR people are not human friendly. But I think there's an aspect of HR that's somewhat a risk. If you're discussing private matters, like if you're writing up an employee, we're talking about discipline or layoff, how do you do that in a cube form?
Yeah, that's true. You can't be open and talk about disciplinary matters or things you need to bring up with an employee with an open door policy.
Yeah.
But then you've got to think about it in context too. What are you talking about? Are you just having water cooler talk? Open the door. Are you talking about disciplinary matters? Close the door.
Correct.
But unfortunately, a lot of times the door is closed. Anytime you want to approach people.
So we are live, as we said, live at Continuity Insights. Our first guest is late. So proof that we are live. We won't say the person's name. We're not going to call anyone out yet. But for those yet. But the clock is ticking.
Hopefully they join us soon. But either way, James and I have lots to talk about anyway. So what are we moving on to next? Our guest is late, so we got to jump to a different topic.
Yeah, let's bump up. So let's talk about, you were sharing something with me over dinner yesterday, and so the last couple episodes that you and I have done together, I've shared my feelings and my experiences traveling for the first time, and what's that like to be in a crowded airport or around people or in an elevator, or we were in a very packed restaurant last night. This is your first time, I believe, being around more than 2 or 3 people. So share with the audience, if you don't mind, what's your experience been the last couple of days?
Well, if you're not a direct family member or a neighbor, I haven't been around anybody for 2.5 years, like many people. So I found yesterday, I flew in, not yesterday, it's the day before, Saturday, and I had a little bit of a mini anxiety attack being in the airport. It wasn't going through checkout or security or anything like that, but when we had to line up to get on a plane, I'm like, it doesn't matter what zone they call or what rows they call, everybody gets up and just boom, gathers right at the entrance there. And I was stuck in the middle of them, and it was the first time I'd been that close to anybody, a bunch of people that weren't family, or close friends. And all of a sudden, I started to tense up and felt really, really nervous. And I was trying to make myself smaller. I didn't want to rub shoulders with anybody or run into anyone. And I realized what was happening, and I had to say to myself, calm down. You've been here before. This happens at all airports. Don't worry about it. Once you get on the plane, I had a single seat to myself, so you won't be around other people. You'll be fine. And I just had to take a few deep breaths while that was happening. All these people were around me. But that never happened to me before, and I think it's simply because I haven't been around a lot of people. I feel fine here during the conference, but then I haven't been stuck in the middle of a big crowd either.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something I think we as business continuity and resilience professionals need to think about as we bring people back to the office. We have spent 2.5 years not around a lot of people.
Yeah.
And now if you think you're going to pull everyone back together and it not be a difficult adjustment period, like you found out, or when I was at my first conference, I think I told you every day, it was just emotionally taxing. Like I just could not get enough sleep because I wasn't used to being around so many people. It almost felt like sensory overload where I just needed to go hide in my room for a couple of years.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how I feel tonight after presenting, being around people, having lunch with people, sitting here, watching people go by. If I'm going to feel drained when we're done today, will I go back to the room and just go, ugh? I don't know. But you bring up an interesting point there I think one of the key things we need to look at over the coming months and years, if not years, is the mental health of people that have been working at home.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that were living in small little condos. I know that I don't know any other city, but I'll use Toronto as an example. There are small condos, and I was working with some people. You could see their bed in the background, no matter how much they tried to hide it. You knew that they lived in a small condo, and you could see, and that didn't give them a lot of room for their own space.
Yes.
You turn around this way, there's my bed. You turn around this way, it's my office. My dining room table is my office, or whatever certain situations were. That's going to be tough on people. And I think it's interesting for organizations that think if we bring everybody back, it'll be good for everybody. Well, it may not be good for everybody. They may want to get back to the office, but they may find themselves like I did in the airport yesterday, having a bit of an anxiety attack. I'm not used to this. I don't want to be on the train with a ton of people.
Yeah.
Or if you're taking a bus or commuting on a subway, well, those things get pretty darn packed. And if you haven't been doing that for 2.5 years, you're not going to be comfortable. And you don't want to go back into the office for that reason.
Yeah, I think we've all heard the saying that a happy employee is a productive employee, and I think companies are going to have to do a better job of measuring that happiness and that productivity. Is it work from home? Is it work in the office? Is it having training to help people reacclimate to these situations?
I think that's something that organizations are going to have to look at. And maybe it's human resources. I don't know who. I don't have the answer. Because people in human resources and leadership will have experienced a lot of the same things. Burnout. Some people became teachers, and it didn't matter if you were the CEO of a company. You had to teach your math to your 5-year-old, whatever the case may be, as an example. That's the same thing. Somebody who could be, so much further down the hierarchical totem pole was experiencing as well. So the same burnout, the same experiences, the same challenges on trying to keep it all together. Now you're going to put them all in the office. Why? What for? And if you are going to do that, you've got to be prepared for how some of these people are going to react, because people react differently. So there's a greater increase for conflict. People have shorter fuse. And unfortunately, we see in the news examples of violence in the office place as well. Obviously, not as much over the last couple of years, but that may change now as people go forward into the office. Who's looking at that? Who's addressing that? I think it was our last one or the one before, where we did this week in business continuity. I kind of tore a pound of flesh off of two of the leading industry groups who said, it's great to be talking about it, but what are you doing? You can't wait. This isn't something you can wait. Suicides went up, domestic violence went up, mental health. You can't wait to address it. You have to be seen and actionable now.
Yeah, and you said earlier maybe HR should take business continuity, resilience professionals should be a part of this. A lot of times after a crisis, we bring in crisis counselors, and we think of doing that after an active shooter in the workplace. We think of doing that after a fire or something that's been traumatic. And I think we need to be thinking about that during this type of event, during COVID. It's a long-term trauma. It's not as aggressive trauma, but it has been traumatic for all of us, really. And we should be doing the same level of I'm just going to stop here and
we're chuckling because some people stand in front of us and just listen.
There are some people very fascinated. Alex has some bookmarks for his books. There are people very fascinated, very, very fascinated in the bookmarks, and it's very distracting as a speaker. We've been taking notes along the way of things we need to do better next time. I just wrote myself a note a little while ago that we need to have a sign that says live on the air, because quite a few people, I don't know if they just think we're crazy and talking to each other or why there's a camera, but they haven't really noticed that we are live on the air.
Crazier than normal.
And so I apologize. I'm not sure what we were talking about. Crisis counseling. We'll have to come back to that.
Mental health.
My mental health is breaking live on the air here. Because
we're only getting started. We still got an hour to go. You're already breaking down?
People love Alex's bookmarks. We've seen people, and one person swiped a lot of them. I don't know if you saw that.
That's good, because I don't want to take any home. It's too heavy in the luggage.
You heard that here, people. If you are looking for a lot of bookmarks, Alex will look you up in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I got lots. Many varieties for all my books. So I don't want to take anything home. So.
Oh, my goodness.
Drink of water. And our first guest has arrived.
We have our first guest. When you're ready.
Just let us know when you're ready.
You can do it. This is you are allowed to do whatever you'd like.
Come and join us.
Okay.
Some of you may recognize my guest. She's actually being on Preparing for the Unexpected once or twice. Twice, yes. Once with Rena Singh.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Rena, if you're watching.
Hi, Rena. And other women in resiliency for the PCI.
Yes. How are you?
I'm great. It's lovely to be here with you fine gentlemen here at Continuity Insights in Louisville.
Okay, cut. She's making that up.
No, I'm not. No, it's not.
Thing.
I've known these guys for many years now, and I enjoy being with them. And I was honored that you asked me to get on and chit-chat with you guys.
Yeah, now I didn't know you are part of the CI advisory board.
Yes.
Is that correct?
I've been part of the editorial advisory board for, I don't know how many years. I have to go look up my resume, actually.
Okay.
Quite a few number of years. It's been really great working with Bob, setting the agenda for the conferences and also getting to know some of the speakers. And one of the nice things is introducing the speakers and getting to know them a little bit in advance. And it's great that we are here back in session live. It was nice that the technology has afforded us the opportunities to do things virtually over the past few years, but I can honestly say I've missed seeing people and being back live in person.
Now, since we're live on the air, I can ask you anything. Which is
well,
kind
within
of
reason,
exciting.
James.
Yeah.
So I noticed you introduced Alex today, but not me.
It was a luck of the draw who I got assigned to, so I am sorry. So next year, or if we do something else with Continuity Insights, or maybe I got another session I need to swap out, but I will ask Bob next year to introduce both of you, or maybe the three of us can do a session together next year.
You never know. Yeah.
You never know.
So tell us about your first day.
Awesome first day here at Continuity Insights. I was asked to be a backup speaker because the original keynote speaker was not able to attend. So I participated in a panel discussion talking about the Great Resignation. And I believe that that's something that we are still going to continue to see, not only in 2022, but beyond, as people decide what's right for them personally, professionally, for their families, and really where they want to live. Because I think now people are really analyzing what's quality of life means to them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then I also participated in the Unique Resiliency Opportunities. Mark Carroll has been leading that for, about 5 years now, where people get up and talk for about 5 or 10 minutes to talk about the unique things that they did that was kind of outside the normal realms of doing business continuity management, and how they like challenging things. And I do that with about 10 other people in a 1 hour session, and that's also very fruitful.
Was there anything in that session that really jumped out at you?
It's a great question that you asked that, James. I think the thing that, has popped out is, again, how to continue to think outside the box as we continue to deal with COVID. And the other thing that came out is, what's the next thing that we need to be prepared for that we're not thinking of today that we need to get ahead of on as continuity planners? Because, for example, there is this situation in the Ukraine. What's the next area that we might need to be looking forward to and help our employees in our office locations to ensure that they continue to be resilient?
As James calls it, the next bump in the night.
I like that term.
Yeah, thank you.
Stolen from his presentation today.
That's right. Finally, somebody grabbed something.
So with being on the advisory board, I'm just kind of curious, what's the process of determining who speaks, like themes and things like? How do you come up with that stuff? Nobody really sees it. You just see the end.
Yeah, sure. Are you allowed to share behind the curtain or no?
Bob's not here.
So some of it still falls back to the conference organizer. I mean, James and I are on the DRJ editorial advisory board, one of the competitors. But I will say this, that I will think that a lot of it falls down to what the conference organizers have as to what they think is right for the current circumstances around the globe. And then I don't get to see all the submissions, so that's where I'm saying I think it is one of those out there. It was really refreshing when Bob said this morning that he had a lot of new people presenting at the conference, and I think that's really instrumental for us as a profession to get new people to come in and get out and talk about things. Because I will also say, and I'm sure the two of you have experienced this in talking to people, I don't think they realize that it's not difficult to get your name submitted for a conference. It's just the fact that you've got to understand what the topic requirements are, what the hot things are that they're maybe suggesting, and then taking a chance and getting your submission in on time and hoping and keeping your fingers crossed that you get submitted.
It's interesting you bring up the point of new speakers, because that kind of came up during my presentation. It came up as I was talking with Phil Lambert next door to us here about new people in the industry trying to get their foot in the door to conferences or writing white papers or getting involved with things and talking with people like us who might be retiring in 10 years, let's say.
Correct.
So it's interesting that we're bringing that up. What are we really doing about it? What kind of things can we do?
It's a great question. Yeah, and I say because some of this I look at, I encourage people of all ages, whether they're new to the profession, they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, that if you've got a great topic, go ahead and submit your session that you want to talk about. Some of it I think gets down to people are shy, and I also want to say, if you're very confident in what you know about your subject matter expert, you can get out there and talk about it, because I am not one of those that typically rehearse what I'm going to say. I just get up and talk about it. And I think some of it, you have to have faith in yourself that you are going to be confident to go talk about, say, a risk assessment or what you learned during exercising during COVID or return to office or whatever that great hot topic is. But I also think that we still have a vacancy in the pipeline for future professionals. And that is something that I really don't know what we can do to help that, because I can tell you in many of the companies that I've worked at, if I've had a vacant position and I've had somebody that I think is new, it's the challenge is can you afford to then stop and take the time to go mentor somebody to get them up to speed? Or some organizations, like one of you leave, and then it's like you're a senior position and they want to take that role and turn it down to a lower job level. And I'm like, can I get a 2-for-1? You leave, and can I get 2 junior people that I can groom to come up with a pipeline? And organizations sometimes don't want to do that.
Yeah, and let's face it, there's still, even though it's changing, there's still not a lot of opportunities for people to even go to school to learn. It is changing because I am seeing it, but if you get into this industry, I think still more people say they fell into it by accident, or I had it delegated to me, rather than, oh, I thought this was an interesting industry to get into.
Right.
Right.
And when you do talk to some of the people who have gotten what I'll say college teachings, is they were more cybersecurity or emergency management, and then had an elective that was related to business continuity management. I know in my career, I'm originally from Massachusetts, and when I worked in Boston, I actually did take summer interns from Northeastern University because I had to do a co-op every semester or every other semester, and I would bring them in. And then when I currently live in North Carolina at one of my employers, I also brought in some of the students, and I would get students who were, mathematics people or whatever. No exposure, but I was like, I wrote the job description that kind of enticed them to say this is something that could apply to the people that we were trying to recruit for the summer interns and get them in. And I have taken some people on that trajectory, and most of them are still in the business continuity related profession. But it's also hard to get funding for a new FTE for somebody that's fresh out of college too.
Yeah. Well, some of those entry positions too, they ask for years of experience on an entry level.
Yeah.
How can you have experience? How can you have years of experience on an entry level position? Or ask for an entry level position, but want years of experience. Well, wait a minute.
Or certifications.
Certifications, but it takes at least 5-6 years to get a good certification, because you need. I am a certification commissioner for the Disaster Recovery Institute Canada, so you have to have 2 years BIA experience.
Right.
So if you're applying for certification, you need 3 professional practices. That's 6 years, 2 years for each one of those. So it takes a long time to get that certification. And that's a challenge too.
So, Margaret, one of the things that Alex and I have been talking about on the show for probably a year now is the whole in-person versus work remote, and the companies that are on the extremes requiring one or the other. I believe you work in your new position remote now.
Correct.
Is that correct? So, what are your thoughts around working remote in general? You don't have to talk about your employer specifically, but I'd love to hear. Alex and I have to hear each other's thoughts all the time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on. Do you like working remote? Do you not like pros, cons? Like, what have you seen the last couple of years on that personally?
So I love how you asked me that question, because if you had asked me this question 5 years ago, my response would be totally different than compared today. I grew up in the workforce of went to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. When I first started working, of course, this technology did not exist today. And prior to COVID, I did start and try and work from home 1 day a week. And I was more just, hey, might as well do it. It's here. Other people are doing it. I have also worked at companies prior to COVID where you could work 4 9-hour shifts and have a Friday off, or 4 10-hour days and have 1 day a week off, or something like that. But when COVID hit, I was like, oh gosh, I'm at home now 5 days a week. And I was like, oh, got to get used to this. But I think I've adjusted, and now I'm working 100% remotely from home. And when I was job searching last year, I decided I didn't want to go back into an office. I have now started to enjoy the freedom. I can get up, go take a walk in the morning, make my coffee, go to my office. You get to wear sweatpants and trainers from the waist down and look good from the waist up. And I'm happy to go into the office as needed. But I look at it, we globally have proven that we have been successful in working remotely these past 2 years. I think that organizations really, truly need to figure out what's the right mix for their employees. And I think if you dictate thou shalt do, that will provide more resistance from employees. And I think you're better off saying, hey, we have this opportunity for you to come in and do what you want to do. I also think that the return to office, as we continue on that journey, will continue to hit roadblocks by people because the delightful experience may or may not be there in the workplace. And also, again, even when I did go into the office, I always remember you go in, and I've always worked for global companies. I'd go into the office and I would dial into a meeting with somebody elsewhere. Or if it was a bad day and I always worked on campuses, you would not come over to my building where I hosted the meeting because it was raining.
And you just dial in.
Right, or you were
From
busy
over there.
because you were back-to-back meetings and you're like, I'm dialing in because I can't make it over.
You mentioned need to figure things out. The dynamic has changed and things. There was a recent survey in Canada. If organizations all of a sudden mandated everyone has to go back to the office across the board, 53% of people said they would quit on the spot. Wow.
I think they would. I think that everybody likes to have that freedom, and I'm not saying that you didn't have it before. Meaning, if on Tuesday you had something go wrong, you need to have your plumber come. Everybody would be in agreement on that you could work from home. But I think now that we have built in that capability and that luxury, it's like, why do we need to? And I look at organizations, and somebody should be embracing it so that we can.
We're live on the air right now, so you're welcome to join us, but we're not selling anything.
If you have anything you want to add, feel free. You can be a guest.
We need a sign. We need a sign, Margaret. We
You do need a sign. Live on the air.
What do they think? We're just talking to ourselves, I guess.
Maybe because we're all looking this way and a microphone. I also think that organizations would welcome the fact that they can cut down on corporate real estate, because if you're in major cities, the cost per square footage is astronomical.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Unbelievable. Yeah. I know someone who's a facility manager, and he says he's very busy right now because he's renegotiating all the leases to reduce their footprint.
Yeah.
We don't need all the workspace anymore.
I work for a company. We had a huge presence in New York, London, Paris, very high real estate cost, and we realized the last years they didn't go out of business. They still adapted. So why are you sinking that kind of money in real estate if it's not actually beneficial for the business?
Right.
I can see some of these office towers, just like some hotels, moving all the offices down to the first 20 floors. The top 20 will get converted into condos.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there is that opportunity, and also I look at it as, hey, if there's a way that we can repurpose these buildings to not have to go build new construction. I think if you go through any major city, at least here in the U.S., and I'm sure it's the same in Canada, the amount of construction that's taking place, but if we could repurpose these buildings to condos, daycares, whatever, let's make it work.
Yes, I think so.
Well, we have some gifts for you, Margaret, for putting up with us.
Yeah.
For a few minutes.
You get a copy.
Signed copy.
A signed copy,
which I don't have in my repertoire.
There you go. That's for you. Being a guest, thank you very much.
And we have a gift from your friend Rena Singh, Brazilian by Design.
Well, I know my friend Rena Singh, so thank you.
Well, there you go.
Thank you. Good luck to you both.
Thank you so
I
much.
hope this becomes a new norm at Continuity Insights.
I hope so too. We're looking for. Are you speaking tomorrow, or are you speaking today?
No, I am speaking tomorrow. I'm speaking tomorrow with Jerry Gundren, who works at Chubb Insurance, and we're talking about supply chain resiliency.
Oh, that's
wow.
Yeah.
Big major topic going on right now.
Well, and we wrote everything before the Ukraine situation started. So I think that I said to Jeremy, we might need to do another little tweak here on what's happening with that, because of course that's thrown a curveball to many within our profession. And again, I just look at it depending on what happens with global elections that are taking place this year. They can continue to cascade down with other fun things that we as continuity professionals need to consider in our planning process.
That's a lot. Yeah. What time is your session tomorrow?
Tomorrow afternoon, I believe it's 2:00.
Okay.
2:30.
Great.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Oh, I just want to say, hopefully we get to present at BCI, right?
Yes, BCI World.
BCI, we submitted a joint topic together. Yes. So hopefully, Sergio, if you're watching,
please accept us.
Please accept us, yeah.
And you and I have to connect about TRJ Fall.
Yes,
Yes,
we do.
Yes, we do. So,
Yeah.
gentlemen, I'll let you get back to your conversation. And thank you very much. And for everyone, please continue to check in on these two fine gentlemen's podcasts. They're very much worth your time to listen in on what they have to say about the business continuity management profession.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have some drinks for us.
Yeah, because we can't. So.
You could, but you might start slurring your words.
Exactly. Thanks, Margaret.
All right, Alex. So I don't know if you know, something happened today. It looks like Elon Musk is buying Twitter. The Twitter board of directors has accepted his offer.
Really?
That happened just about an hour or two ago.
Oh,
So
okay.
that a lot of. What do you think about? When Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post, there was some concern about someone owning a piece of media, social media, very influential. Now you have one that's going to be taken private, owned by an individual. What's your first thought, initial reaction to that? Good, bad, indifferent? Could care less? I've seen some very polarizing comments.
A little indifferent
before we went.
because with social media, it's tough to tell what's real and what's not right now anyway. Whether that be Facebook, whether it be Twitter, whether it be YouTube, but not this channel.
Not this channel.
YouTube.
Other channels.
Yeah, other channels. And other social media outlets that are out there. And misinformation that gets put out there. And let's face it, Elon has put out some controversial tweets every so often. Just a few that people struggle with. So I'm not sure what taking over Twitter, what he's going to do with it.
Yeah, make it private so he can do anything he wants with it. I guess
Exactly, and
it's
that
an
could
expensive.
be. It could be to, I think he's the richest man in the world, right?
Maybe
he
not
could be
after
the
this.
first-
I'm not sure. He's looking.
After this,
Elon, if you're looking for your next purchase, Twitter was $44 billion. We can come in with the radio and TV show and podcast
Much slower.
a little bit under that, just a smidge under that.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be interesting watching the reaction the next days and weeks. There are a lot of people who get their news, good or bad,
Yes.
from a single source. A lot of it's generational, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, CBS, NBC, CNN, TSN, pick a network anywhere in the world. And if you rely on something as your source of news, and I particularly use Twitter, I found when I used to manage global business continuity incidents, I would get information from people on the ground on Twitter faster than anywhere else, especially during the Arab Spring in Egypt in 2011. Our global crisis management team was getting great intel from people on the ground on Twitter. And so I wonder if that source goes away for people who are relying on it, good or bad, or for various things. I think it's going to be concerning for people because they're like, well, wait, if that goes away, or if that fundamentally changes, what about these other?
Or there's
areas?
restrictions put on it.
Yeah.
We don't allow anyone to talk about things like the Arab Spring or anything like that, simply because of the owner's political views. And now all of a sudden things are going to be pushed in a different direction. And as you said, now people are not going to be able to get the information that they want or need, or be able to use an application that can, in some instances, save lives because it's so quick.
Yeah. And I've seen some reactions today from people, some people saying, oh, I will never use Twitter. Some people now saying, I'm going to start using Twitter. I think their user base at the ends are going to change a little bit. And it'll be interesting, like you said, when they go private, if they change their terms and conditions, how does that affect people that use it for, more meaningful things than just here's what I ate today. But like you said, here's when there's an emergency happening. Sometimes social media, good or bad, communications move faster on social media than they do through government agencies or official channels.
And there's already the ongoing backlash against Facebook.
Yep.
That's ongoing. If that same backlash happens with Twitter, is there an opportunity for some of these other apps now?
Yeah,
for people
absolutely.
to turn to and for them to change what they're doing? millions of people have left Facebook. Well, if that happens on Twitter, who's next? What are they going to use? They might not want to use something associated with Facebook because they've got a few apps there. So there could be an opportunity for somebody to come out of the woodwork, a small app to, I'm going to fill that need.
Yeah, and I find there's, certain professions align along certain social media. So I find business continuity and risk professionals are primarily using LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But the people I know and the people I work with in information security, cybersecurity, are predominantly on Twitter. So there's some professional gaps too. It'll be interesting to see if that changes over time, or if Alex is going to launch his own social media platform tomorrow at noon here live, and things change. But you have the speed of these things. It's been interesting as an American. You had people like Walter Cronkite. You had people who were these long-standing institutions of media. So you had the three main networks, and then just within the last 10 to 15 years, you've seen the creation of all of social media, and now maybe the fall of some social media. And it's interesting to see these things where before they were generational 40, 50, 60-year arcs, and now it's 5, 6, 7, 10. The speed of how we consume and get information keeps changing.
You mentioned a lot of those people that are using Twitter in that industry. It'll be interesting to see if they still use it because of changes made to that application. We don't think it's secure enough anymore. Even though the company might be private, anything goes now. So maybe, potentially, I'm not saying it will, but if anything goes, well, maybe it's not the best place for us to communicate with regards to emergency management anymore.
Yeah.
And they start changing as well, using something else. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Twitter if it is used the same way by the same people, and what changes are going to be made.
Yeah, and will companies change? So, you and I chatted earlier today about brand erosion. Mm-hmm. So if companies feel that a certain social media platform is no longer advantageous to them or becomes a negative, will they communicate on that platform? One, for branding and marketing, but two, we've seen more organizations during an emergency hit email, hit text, but also hit Twitter, hit Facebook, hit Instagram, hit everything as a form of, secondary form of mass communication.
Yeah, and also companies' missions and values too.
Yeah.
If the, as I said, Elon can sometimes say things that are controversial and sometimes way out there. I'm not criticizing him because he is a smart guy. He didn't get where he is for being stupid, But if he says something controversial, then people may turn around and say, what, that doesn't align because you're now a private company. Doing business with you or using your application doesn't align with our values.
Yeah, and will that bleed over to his other companies, to SpaceX, to Tesla, to the Boring Company? People always say, I'm going to vote with my dollars.
Yeah.
And so will there be unintended consequences?
Yeah, true. I guess that's new. So that just happened today?
Yes.
Like an hour?
Within the last 2 hours, yeah.
Oh, see.
That the Twitter board of directors agreed to the buyout price of $54.20 per share. $44 billion, I believe it's $26 billion of his in cash. A bridge loan from Morgan Stanley, a chunk of his stock as collateral, and some loose change.
Wow.
So,
I didn't hear that, but the last 2 hours we've been in this room.
Well,
so
I'm busy running, trying to find tea, checking out about Twitter.
Yeah,
exactly.
Interesting. So, what's next? Oh, yeah, something that came out of your...
Speaking of controversy, let's talk about something controversial. Yeah.
What do you...
That top
yours?
one,
This one?
absolutely.
Okay. You made an interesting comment in your presentation today that I wrote down, and it's in my book, that I liked the comment. Software does not mitigate risk.
Yes. Am I allowed to say that live on the air?
Yeah. No. We can edit that out, right?
No, we cannot. So to all my software vendor friends, hello. I spent 5 years working as a software vendor, working with software vendors, and I love software. I love how it can automate functions. I love how it can take a lot of the menial tasks that we do, data collection, data management. It can move that off our plate. But the biggest mistake I make is that companies think, hey, we bought a BC software, and so now we won't have a BC event, right? Or we bought a mass notification software, so now we don't have to worry about life safety. And no, so software does not mitigate risk. You still need people, you still need resources behind. Collecting data isn't enough. It would just be like if we did a survey of our organization's building of where all the fire traps were, and then uploaded that into software and didn't do anything with it. It doesn't mitigate risk. And now, one of the frustrations is companies have limited resources to mitigate, shouldn't, but they think that software is the first and last and only thing they need. I've never seen an organization that has software that doesn't have adequate resources, that doesn't have management support, that's actually mitigating risk.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been in that situation too, where I found this software and it can do this and this and this, so we don't need to worry about that anymore. The example I'm thinking of is project management software. And I'm going, but it doesn't do all these things you want to do. It's just a scheduler. It doesn't tell you all these things that you're bringing up, all the risks and things like that. You still need to have people focusing on these things and talking about them and making sure stakeholders are all identified. Just buying an application isn't going to do that for you right off the bat. You still need people to do it. And I think there's still, because applications, some of them are so powerful, they can do so many things.
Absolutely.
There's a false sense of security when you get that software package loaded up. It's like, we've got the software, so we're taken care of now. Everything will be fine. No, not even close. It's just a tool. It's not the answer.
Yeah, I think for me, software allows you to do stuff in addition. So you have software freeing up time. You take that time and you do more meaningful work instead. But a lot of times, to your point, companies use software instead of. Like, okay, we took this time, we now are using it towards software, so we're just gonna, reallocate to other projects or activities.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe part of the problem too with what happened when the pandemic started. We have an application, so we can just use that. We don't need the person anymore. And a lot of people, unfortunately, were let go from their roles, whether it be full-time or contract or whatever, and people relied on the application, but it didn't get them any further. It did nothing for them. And I actually know somebody who was brought back because the company they worked for did exactly that. Let them go because they had an application. They thought they could use that, and it would give them all the answers. And they found that it only does what the user is telling it to do. Well, they took the user away. So now they just have this application sitting there that nobody knew how to use, and nobody to train anyone else. So they had to bring him back.
Absolutely.
And he did ask for more salary too.
Excellent.
And got it.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Software can help you identify risk. Software can help you catalog risk. Software can't tell you which risk to mitigate first. And as we talked about earlier today, unfortunately, software can't yet mitigate risk on its own. You still need management attention. You still need resources. You still need a level of effort.
Yeah. But unfortunately, with a lot of BC software, what tends to happen is it becomes I read it in a book, asset management tool. It's just full of information, and then we end up using this much. So why are we using, not the application, but why are we using all this information? Why are we asking for it? It's just messing up the field. We have this application, it can do all these things, so let's do it. Well, we don't need it. If We're supposed to create programs that are fit for purpose. Sometimes you don't need what somebody else is using. Just because you've got the same tool doesn't mean you need it. Look at all the different models of cars. As long as I can get from A to B, I can go in a limo, I can go on a motorbike, and I can go in a mini Austin. It doesn't matter. I got from A to B. Just because I have the money for a limo doesn't mean I need one.
And I've also seen, unfortunately, some of our colleagues, practitioners, fall into the trap of they think their job is solely to be the administrator or the super user of the software, or making sure all the data is up to date. That's not meant to be the goal of our job.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a tool to help us do our job better. But unfortunately, sometimes I see practitioners where they've just like, oh, I have access to the software. You have to come to me if you want anything. You're not adding value to your organization, and you're not mitigating risk by just documenting and cataloging. I had one client I was thinking of where they told me they were an enterprise risk management client of mine, and they said, well, every week we get our risk register and we have our 10 enterprise risk. And I'm like, okay, great. And then what? And they're like, well, next year we get our 10 risk. And I'm like, okay, so you document your risk and you stack rank it every year. And they said, yeah. What's your recommendation? I said, if you're not going to mitigate any risk, don't even waste the time. Who cares what's 1 to 10? If you just put it on a shelf somewhere. Here, I just freed up 25% of your time. Don't do that at all. Now, it was kind of an absurdist recommendation, but I was trying to prove a point to them that if you're just going to document things for the sake of documenting them, you're not mitigating risk. You're not making your organization more resilient. So if that's all you do, just stop doing it.
Yeah, and to your point, you said a few minutes ago, you're not adding value. I remember one software package I went for the training. They didn't do, I'm not going to name it. You might be able to figure it out.
Are they in the room?
No, they're not here today.
That's too bad. It wasn't me.
No. To get the training, you had to go to their facility in a certain state.
Okay.
Upstate.
Hawaii?
No, unfortunately. I don't want to name the state
All
because
right,
it'll
that's
give it
fine.
away.
Somewhere you had
But
to go
you
to
had
them.
to go to them.
You had to go to them.
And it was 5 days of training.
Wow.
And you went through so much information. I had a conversation with the young lady beside me. I said, this is a full-time job just managing this application. When am I going to have time to actually meet people and get out and do anything? There's so much information, so much security, so much doodads and things you can do with the application. Like, this isn't going to, it's not user-friendly. I said, it sounds like somebody who sat there with an audit checklist and went, we need something that does all of these things. And then they threw it into the software. And now somebody is going to be sitting there 5 days a week just managing that. I thought, is there a dummier version of this application? Something that I can actually use. To me, it didn't add any value. When we go off air, I'll tell you what it is.
All right, now you're gonna have to check in for the bonus content. Maybe
No, I'm not even recording that part.
I probably could have gotten Alex and I ate a huge dinner last night. I don't know about you. I slept for like 10 hours after I was getting ready to hibernate. So maybe sleepy Alex would have spilled the beans.
I would have spilled the beans. Yeah, sure.
Well, we've made it through our first hour.
We have.
We're still alive. Nothing's fallen apart.
And our other guest is yet to be seen.
So we will call that person out and find them for tomorrow.
Yeah. But we are in the industry where things happen and people get pulled away.
That's right.
So,
I guess.
We'll call the person out, but softly.
No, we will find them.
I'm
circling their name and there's a question mark. I had one more topic for us to talk about today. Ann Pickering, who's with Unsolve, who I love, fabulous person.
She's been on the show a couple of times too.
Yeah, she has. We might grab her tomorrow if I can find her. She spent some time in her session today talking about how do you measure the ROI of your program. And this was one of the most difficult questions. When I was with software vendors, a client would say, hey, my CFO wants justification of someone's very excited. A few beers in, walking by.
Yep.
You know, if I buy your software or if I implement your program, what's the ROI? And that's a really tough question to answer. And Anne had some great ideas around hard cost of, you know, some insurance companies, the more robust your program is, your insurance premiums go down.
Yeah.
Those are easy things. But she asked a question that I've been thinking about, and you and I talked about off the air. How do you measure the ROI of things that didn't happen? So the example we used earlier was because you ran fire drills, you had a fire and someone didn't die. There's certainly an ROI there in people not dying. But when you're trying to justify your business continuity or life safety program, how do you capture the risk that organizations didn't incur because of what we do? And I think that's, like, if somebody could answer that question, you would have the whole how do we show value answer done and over.
Well, I said something along the fact of, tying it to incident management. When we have incidents, those that don't escalate, those that, if something occurred, a plan was able to be. Our guest is showing up now.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Our kickoff guest will be back. So Alex
is tying some of this to incidents, those that get reported, things that have happened anywhere in the organization. Those that, did we activate a business continuity plan? Yeah, we did. And because of that contingency, it gave us time to investigate that application or whatever the case may be. So I'm thinking, I don't have the answers, but I'm just thinking that maybe tying it to some existing IT service management or incident management and those kind of protocols and figuring out how you can measure those is how many times BC was involved with those or any kind of contingency, and then trying to measure that. Hey, we had these 10 incidents and 20% of them were escalated, but because we had business continuity, we didn't have anything that no files were delivered incorrectly, we didn't lose data or anything like that.
That's a great idea. For those of you watching in the audience, if you have ways that you measure ROI of your program, send them in. We'd love to see them. We'd be happy to discuss them. We have, if she's ready, we have our last guest of the night.
But she's here.
She's here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Hi, Cheyenne. How are you?
Fantastic. How are you doing?
Doing great. Welcome to our live episode here at Continuity Insights.
Good to be here.
How are you enjoying things so far?
Fantastic. It's so good to be back in person. I know everyone's saying that, but
Is
it's
this
truly...
your first in-person conference?
Yes.
Okay, so when was the last time you were professionally out and about? Was it 2019 or?
It was at the DRI conference.
Okay.
In Savannah, so
All
they
right.
shut down within a week after that.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was kind of surreal because I remember at the conference I was giving everyone hugs. And then I thought as I flew back on the airplane, I'm like cutting down the days.
So what's it like to be back in person?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, just seeing everyone and just, it's just kind of like a family in itself. So everyone's just giving hugs and talking about what they've been doing in the last year and how excited they are to just learn and network. It's just been phenomenal.
Well, I'm glad you can make it. We thought maybe you got called away for a disaster or something. And
You never know what can come up, right?
exactly, we're in that industry. Anything can happen at any time.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, we've already have some of our own lessons learned. Quite a few people don't realize we're broadcasting.
Uh-huh.
They think we're just talking to each other for no reason, and we've had some people come up, which has been fun, exciting. So some things we need to change.
Oh, that's too funny.
just start talking away. It's like we're live right now.
So I think do you have some secret information to share with us?
I do.
Yeah.
So we
Can you
just
break some news here.
Yeah, so
on
we
the show
just
live?
we did. In fact, it's our 20th edition Business Continuity Compensation Study report. So in this study, I'm just in awe that it's been 20 years now of publishing this report. And what really kind of pushed it 20 years ago was every back then it was getting lost. People usually thought of business continuity as either IT or project management.
Yeah.
So starting to gather data on what are some of the factors that really impact a professional's earning potential within the industry, and then how does certification, the different certifications, being degreed, management skills, real world, actually building a program from the ground up or activating during an event. So it's been a lot of fun publishing this report, but the marketing team just makes it look incredible.
Oh, it's a very fancy. This is one of my favorite reports every year.
Mine
Because
too.
when I was a practitioner, I used this. If I thought I was underpaid in the industry, I was like, here's a benchmark study. What do you want to do?
I did the same thing with my current role that I have, and I based it on some of the information from your previous report because the information they wanted, the kind of roles, and then they presented a number, and I went, no, that doesn't align with what the industry is doing, and I took it from your report.
So what are some highlights? What are some things that jumped out that you've seen over the last?
Yeah. So first and foremost, the report that I have in front of me, it highlights not only full-time permanent employees, but also independent fixed-term contractors.
Nice.
And we received responses from 39 countries,
Wow.
over 800 respondents. And for the purpose of doing the report, we converted all the currencies to US dollar just for consistency purposes. But what was interesting about this year's study is that, I can see the surge in demand for business continuity professionals. The demand is there. I know my companies are increasing compensations, but this year the compensation increase was by 13%.
Wow.
The year before, it was only about just slightly over 1%.
Wow. I'm going to guess pandemic had something to do with that.
That and the supply, everything as a result, right? So, in companies are not only developing programs, if they didn't have a very substantial program or if it wasn't very centralized, but now they're just adding to the program because their team is stretched so thin. The other thing I thought was interesting is not only for the permanent employees, but the contractors also noticed a big jump. So the low hourly rate went up by 26%.
Wow.
Whoa.
And the high hourly rate went up by 21%.
And do you think that's due to organizations wanting higher quality people, or is it because they want
demand.
more of the scarcity of people that's currently out?
The scarcity. So
Okay.
even myself, I've been recruiting on this industry since 98, 99, and I can vouch that when I post a job, no responses.
Really?
No
Really?
responses. So I have to go out and individually email people, and even if I do it on LinkedIn, the response. So when I have companies come to me, they're desperate and they're not getting any response whatsoever. So the demand is at an all-time high, and even if they're 100% remote, because what transpired is early on with the pandemic hitting, people weren't looking to leave because they didn't want to leave their employer in a bad situation. But then after about a year and a half, they started looking. Everyone kind of started looking at the same time because the demand was building, and they felt the need to make a change, right? So now you're in this quandrum where the people who did want to leave have left. So with that in mind, also those people who sought out new employment was 16% this last year. The year before it was 9%. So 16% specifically sought out a new job with a new company.
And how much of that do you think is driven by these organizations are now willing to have people remote, or is it just economic pressure?
It's a little mix of both. Companies, they're more open to remote because they want to be more competitive in the market space, and more professionals are open to that. But it's funny because we do have a special section in this report that focuses on the impact of COVID-19 and the Great Resignation, and how that's impacted our profession. So we have several data charts on, what are people looking for as far as remote or being hybrid working solution? What's the likelihood of them looking in the next year? What would they give up if they were remote? So we have a lot of different questions that kind of pinpoint. And not only that, but what keeps them happy? Like what keeps them in a job as well. So a lot of interesting data that we've never kind of mapped out before.
Did any of the recent standards that have come out, like the one that came out of the Bank of England, have an impact? Did that come across? Like we never put much emphasis, let's say, on business continuity before, but because of this Bank of England standard that's come out, we need to take this a lot more serious. We need people now. Does that
Yes.
contribute?
Most definitely. I mean, it's not here like in the data, but in talking to companies and speaking to my hiring managers, speaking to people out there in the industry, but also seeing the activity the jobs posted, UK surged as much, if not more, than the US, where other markets did not surge as. I mean, the Middle East hasn't really had as much activity as the US or the UK. Canada's been a little bit slower than some of the other markets. Australia is now just starting to pick up speed. I'm just trying to recruit there as well. So each region has its different kind of pockets, but the UK, because of the standards, the banking standards, I've never seen the amount of activity there as a result. So.
I think that standard is going to come over here in one way, and
Yes.
you're going to see even more, even in Canada and the US, the same kind of thing. And maybe it's just it hasn't got there yet, but it's going to.
Yeah, I think just like we saw with GDPR, where it was privacy only for European Union industry, only inside Europe, and then it was like, oh, you have one office open in Cincinnati with one employee, now you're in scope. I think you're going to see the same type of regulations drive our industry as well.
Yeah.
So where can people get the report?
They can go to the website BC Management spelled out, so bcmanagement.com. Go to Research and Insights, and the first tab under Research and Insights is Compensation and Career Studies. And so they can request a complimentary copy. It's complimentary to anyone who would like to receive it. For those who participated, they get a customized dashboard. And the dashboard is customized based on years of experience or job title. We purposely now keep the studies open until like almost for a year, because that continues to build and make the dashboards better. So even though we did the studies about 800 people, now we're close to 1,000.
Oh, wow.
So people are still participating, and people now they're just getting the dashboards right now. So they're sharing it with their peers, because they know if they share it, it's going to make their dashboard even continue to build in value for themselves. And I should tell you that, so for the US, they have the country, and then by the other filter, but then we do have a dashboard just for the UK, a dashboard just for the Euro currency. Canada has its own dashboard. But right now, so we have all those great dashboards that are in their own currency as well. But as long as the country has over 50 respondents, they get a dashboard for their country, as well as a global, by country, by job title, or by years of experience.
With this year's report, what's the one thing that surprised you the most?
Honestly, I would have to say, I was expecting an increase in compensations. So I shouldn't say I was really surprised, but I was happy to see like the amount that it increased by, and not just for the independent, not just for the full-time permanent employees, but for the contractors too. Because at first the contractors weren't getting caught up, or the demand wasn't there until later on. So I was happy to see that on both ends there were spikes, and the spikes were, I would say, right where I expected it. But it's always good when you think you're going to see the data and it actually comes out that way.
Oh, good. I better check my hourly rate, make sure
He's
all in there.
Alex will be sending out some new invoices. I have one more question for you. So you're working with a lot of organizations right now. You mentioned demand for professionals is higher than it's been in a long time. Is there a skill or skill set that you're consistently seeing organizations ask for that maybe your traditional business resilience professional doesn't have, or is there a gap that you're seeing, or are we pretty much aligned in terms of expectations and needs?
That's a great question. So we have another report that's on our website that's looking at professional.
That wasn't a plan. I promise.
BCM career.
Okay.
And so we did a study on what are companies looking for hiring managers at the entry level, mid-level, and senior level. And it really comes down to those soft skills, right? So at the mid-level or at the entry level, they want the passion for the role. They're really, driving the program, being a champion, and just, the desire to grow and learn, right? The mid-tier, it's a whole mix of soft skills. You're looking at a little bit of situational awareness, a little bit of change agent, a little bit of emotional intelligence, but that makes sense because they're working across the organization and they're doing a lot of the governance, updating the plans, and so forth. At the high level, situational awareness was above and beyond. They want someone who can engage the executives. They want someone who can understand how to activate the program during an event and quickly pivot based on what the circumstances are, and understand how to roll out the culture of resilience within the organization. So it's different based on the level, but that's another report that we did in the last year.
And so for anyone watching, if they're looking to make a change, you should talk to her.
Yes, talk to me.
What's the best way to contact you? Website, email, LinkedIn?
I would say probably LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I have it open just about all the time.
Okay.
Cheyene Marling, just to make sure, just in case we didn't say the full name at the beginning.
Yes.
Yes, Cheyenne's always posting new roles somewhere in the world.
It's been fun.
Good.
Busy.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm glad you finally made it.
Yes,
over.
I'm so sorry.
It's
I did the walk ride. I'm like, oh my gosh.
We were going to come hunt you down tomorrow. No, but
He was threatening to name you on it.
No, I wasn't there yet. I was close.
Okay, you're close.
But we have a gift for you for joining.
Oh gosh.
We do have some gifts.
You get a copy of the,
Oh,
the latest
nice.
book, signed
Signed.
Signed. I
Signed.
love that. Thank
Put it
you
on
very
eBay
much.
when it becomes more famous.
Exactly.
And this is from Rena Singh.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
she has a Brazilian podcast, and that's our Brazilian by Design notebook.
Notebook. Got it.
So
Love it. Well, thank you. And again, I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
quite all
Better
right.
late than never, right?
That's what happens when we're live.
Anything
makes
can
it
happen,
exciting.
right? Thank you very much,
Very
Cheyenne.
good. Thank you.
Great to see you again,
Cheyenne.
and we'll see you later.
Okay, bye. Like getting trapped.
Trapped in the
There we
chair
go.
here. There we go.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks. Well, I think that kind of brings us near the end, doesn't it?
I think it's time to wrap up
Yeah.
day one. Nothing fell over.
No, including
we had,
us.
We had some people and some alcohol bump in, which will that's what live is.
Kind
I
of
guess.
humorous. I wish people could have seen people just coming up, standing here.
I
So
think,
what are you doing?
Going forward, we almost need the audience can't see what we see. I think at some points we need a secondary camera because
Just
some of the
pan around.
ridiculous things that we have seen, and we'll talk more about tomorrow. There's something that you and I are staring at across the way.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll bring that up tomorrow.
But
And we do have to show the $20 garbage can too.
Yes, we will. I was going to save that for tomorrow. I'm a little bitter about our trash can. We will talk more about that tomorrow. Day 2 live, starting at what time? 11 a.m.
Yeah.
Eastern.
Yep.
I think.
Yeah, 11 Eastern. Yep. Tomorrow, same place, same channel. And Jane, thanks very much.
See you tomorrow, Alex.
We did it.
We did it. First day in the books.
Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Here we go.